Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Max Colonization series, where we are starting on Relica Minor and learning all about the dinos. Speaking of dinos, on the objectives today is doing more exploration, hopefully starting to ranch some lumbs, and finding the components that we need to start saving up so we can eventually make a bunch of intracosmic blast shots. Now I know the community voted that we want to see it hit. I'd still like to show you how to destroy it and what happens afterwards if you do. So even though we're eventually going to let it hit, we're going to go through the process of preparing for it either way. Right now we're digging up and you'll see that we have found our first Rex. The Rexes are the second dino that we have found. And the reason why they're important is because they give you feather fiber when you shear their tail, which is like reed fiber and we'll need it for suits. Right next to the Rex you can see the little derpy dartles. The Rexes eat dartles. As horrific as that is, the dartles require dewdrips, which are the plants up here, and they excrete bleachstone. The dewdrips give you a renewable source of brine ice, as does the Rex. And beside them is the Megafrond, which consumes chlorine at a pretty good clip of 22.5 grams per second, and in return gives you Megafrond grain, which is very similar to sleet wheat. And that's one of the cool things about the new DLC, is a lot of your ingredients can be substituted for other ingredients. More on those little guys later. Right now I'm trying to find some sea combs, which will be in some of the swampier areas with all the polluted water. Right now I'm preparing the ranch for the lumbs, and I'm trying to make sure it'll be 96 tiles, but only at a height of 3, so it is a much longer building. More on that in a little bit. Hopefully we get our second skill point for Piercer here soon. Right now they're at 1165 out of 5204. Looks like Josh Manchester is ready for hard digging. And Glenn Sullivan can also do the advanced research now. Before we can start talking about ranching the lumbs, we need to figure out what the requirements are. The lumbs can eat overgrow figs, bristleberries, and bog jellies. Well, we don't have bristleberries or bog jellies, so we are stuck with overgrow figs. And it says they eat 4 kilos per cycle. Well, what does that mean? Well, if we go to their database entry, we get a little bit more information that they eat 1,300 calories per cycle, which in turn will then give us 200 calories worth of peat. The entire reason why we are ranching lumbs to begin with. Well, if we take a look at an overgrow node, we can see that they grow vines out their side. In fact, they can grow 12 vines to one side and another 12 to the other, for a total of 24. Well, by clicking on one individual vine, you can see that in 3 cycles, it'll give us 325 calories. Or another way to say it is 325 calories divided by 3 cycles gives us 108.3 calories per cycle. Well, when we multiply that times the 24 vines that the overgrow node can grow, means we're going to be getting 2,600 calories per cycle. Well, it looks like that would line up pretty well with supporting 2 lumbs, each eating 1,300 calories per cycle. Unfortunately, there is some calorie lost from the time that the vine grows the fruit until it is harvested. So you never actually see the 325 calories in 3 cycles. It's normally more like 3.2 cycles. And even with that just little bit of delay, it reduces the calories to about 100 per vine. Well, as you can see from the sparkle over here, the Mimikas can help us out with that too, just to make sure that there is enough food to go around for the 2 lumbs that we'll be able to support in a ranch. Let me put in the grooming station using one of the new blueprints. Looks very festive, and also a critter drop-off. And that leaves us, even in a 3 tile high ranch, 29 tiles. Well, the overgrow node's going to take up one of those, and then 12 vines growth on each side, that's another 24. You don't have a lot of room in here, but I'm at least going to find the halfway in between. There's 14, there's 14, which means I need a farm tile right here, and I'll go dig up this node here, since it's sort of in the way of our ladder, and I'll plant it here. And now we'll have 12 tiles worth of vine growth this way, and 12 tiles worth of vine growth this way. But remember, it takes 13 to support 1 lumb. Well, that's where our tricky friend, the Mimika butterfly, comes into play. And if we remember from our earlier math that we did with the sweatcorn, a 3-cycle domestic growth growing at 25% faster means that the vine's going to grow in 80% of the time, which if you recall, it's 1 divided by 1.25, and then 80% of the original 3 cycles comes out to be 2.4 cycles. So now we're going to be getting that 325 calories in 2.4 cycles. So 325 divided by 2.4, which comes out to be 135.4 calories. Well, at max growth, when this node is 12 vines deep this way and 12 vines deep this way, for a total of 24 vines, we can take that 135.4 and multiply it times 24, and we're getting a grand total of 3,249.6 calories, or 3,250. And that's per cycle. Well, remember, our lumbs eat 1,300 calories worth. So you would need 3,900 calories in each ranch in order to support 3 lumbs. Now, you don't have to put the overgrow node inside the lumb ranch. You could have a bunch of farms with a bunch of overgrow nodes and then just use a critter feeder. But you'll end up saving on dupe labor because the lumbs will self-harvest the overgrow vines by stomping on the ground, and then the fruit falls down, which then saves your dupes a lot of time harvesting 24 separate vines. But because we don't need the 3,600 calories per cycle that we could get if they were all perfectly pollinated, and we only need 2,600, I think we can get away with just 1 mimica bud. Oh, these dupes were so tempting. We have a herald here who's cooking, supplying, and decorating, and even a night owl. Unfortunately, they're trypophobic. Meanwhile, Nisbet is a cooking and building expert, but is also building impaired. I'm very tempted to take this herald. Your cook shouldn't be doing anything outside the colony anyways, but if they ever do get into trouble, this herald's not going to be able to dig their way out of it. I tell you what, we're going to do it anyways. Welcome to duplicate number 5, our new cook, Andy. Means we'll need another cot, another mess table. Speaking of which, I don't think I ever managed to get the flower pot. I need to grab it because right now we are only getting the mess hall bonus of +3 to morale. I'm also going to throw the deodorizer down because we're soon about to have polluted water and everything over here. In fact, I'm also going to put an airflow tile and another deodorizer right here for any of the polluted nastiness that comes out from this side. And all we have to do is extend our power to the second deodorizer, and that should be pretty good. These deodorizers are one of the reasons why I was real happy to see sand come out of the pod during the last episode. But now I think it's a decent time to grab the smoker. Now it's going to take a little while for these vines to grow, hence the reason why we did all this now. I also put the mimica bud in early to sort of help speed this whole thing along. I also got to fill that in. And the reason why it's important is because even if I did have a dupe that was capable of doing ranching, if I put the lumb in there now, they would end up starving to death. Ooh la la, our smoker is ready. I'm going to put it, say, right here. I'm also going to put a storage bin right next to it to store some of the peat that we'll need to cook with it. Now that we have the smoker, I get to highlight one of the changes that has recently happened to Auction Not Included, and it has to do with the recipes and the way they appear. For instance, if I click tender brisket here, you can see that it requires 2 ingredients, and then it will get our tender brisket. Well, ingredient number 2, it says 1 out of 2 because we could use peat or wood, and you'd be able to select which one you wanted to use if we had access to both. In this case, we do not have access to ingredient number 1 that says it hasn't been discovered, but if you highlight your mouse over it, you can see that it is tough meat. So once we do discover the tough meat, I will turn that on forever, but we can start cooking our veggie poppers. Now, it's going to take 5,600 calories worth of veggie poppers, which at 800 calories per plant is 7 plants worth of sweat corn. But when we add that to 100 kilos worth of peat, it's going to over double the amount of food that we get from that sweat corn. And if we look at this ratio, you can see that we're going to be able to cut down on the amount of plants. Well, what I mean by that is, if we just look at the fact that this is basically doubling the amount of calories that we're getting, it means we can half the amount of sweat corns we're growing. Because instead of getting 800 calories per plant, we're basically getting 1,600 calories. Now you may be thinking, well, it's a little bit more than double Echo. Well, remember, you still have the harvesting time to account for, so it's not too big of a deal. Now, instead of it taking 3 sweat corns to support 1 dupe, 3 sweat corns supports 2 dupes. So I can dig up these 6 I'm not going to because they're so close to being harvested, but as they are harvested, I will dig them up because there's no reason for us to waste our peat or the duplicate labor that it takes to harvest them. Speaking of which, we're up to almost 20 tons of peat. I need to get these guys starting to produce some because in addition to the 100 kilos it's going to require to make one veggie poppers, each intercosmic blast shot also requires 100 kilos worth of peat. You could also use fertilizer, but we don't have access to it. I am sitting at 3 idle dupes right now, so I want to do some more exploration. I think we'll just dig up over here and then maybe go off to the side a little bit. And I don't see any reason why we can't just keep going further south as well. Oh, and there's our first geyser. Let's go find out what that's going to be. We'll have to do some creative digging because we don't have tier 3 digging yet. That ought to do it. And then we'll also dig off into this direction. And then we'll also dig over here. Oh, in fact, we've already dug up through there, so I can get that same visibility by just going, let's say, here and then slowly digging up. So this is quite a few dig commands. Not a big deal. Elsewhere on the commands, I think we should probably put down the Blastshot maker, but it does require 800 kilos of a refined metal. That's quite a bit. So I think I'm going to set up another wheel and battery up there. This is going to take them a little while, but it's not too big of a deal. And then on our research front, we will grab that rock crusher. We're definitely not going to be setting up a metal refinery quite yet. So the fastest way for us to get that refined metal that we'll need to build the Blastshot makers so we can start making our plans on how to make the blast shots is to make the refined metal with the rock crusher. Unfortunately, losing a lot of the ore in the process. In fact, I need to start planning where these levels are going to be. Yeah, the 3-tile high Lumb ranch is going to be an eyesore for a little while, but eventually we'll have 5 Lumb ranches, and that way they'll even back up with the 4 high on this side. So I think this is where we're going to dig in. I can't do anything about the research portal yet. It has to be demolished, and you can't demolish without a demolitions expert. But we will put the battery and the wheel in here. Oh, I've completely forgot about the new wheels this whole time. What a bad content creator. Of course we're going to use the rustic manual generators. I completely forgot. And the smoker's reminding me that I needed a gas output for this. And that's because, well, smokers smoke, which would be a great way to fill this place up if it weren't filled already. You can see we're getting our sterile atmosphere for the ration box, so our food lasts a bit longer. And oh my goodness, we're down to 5,300 calories. Our carbon sink is all the way down here, so I don't see any reason why we can't make it look like a real smoker and put the smokestack right on top of it. Need to put some peat in here. Eventually we'll have an auto sweeper taking care of that for us. With the smokestack in, you can see that we are starting to work on our veggie poppers. Now it does take quite a long time. It's 600 seconds, i.e. one entire cycle, but we're going to get 11,450 calories on the outside, which is enough to support 11 duplicates. It does also produce 9,000 DTUs, which is twice as much as what a regular grill produces. But it won't be running all the time, because we're only going to be producing so many sweat corn. Our next pod is not much fanfare. I'm definitely not grabbing this anemic max, even though they do start off with exosuit training, which is kind of cool. And Mima's got a bottomless stomach, and I'm not printing a bionic dupe for another 500 to 600 cycles, so I mean, it could even be further out than that. I'm definitely going to take the oxygen producing algae. I wanted to highlight that we had our first round of empties on the outhouses and the wash basins, so we've got a little bit of polluted water in here. And it's even got a nice layer of carbon dioxide, so it's not off-gassing too much. We have finished our work on the rock crusher, so I will put that in right there. No, I'm not going to use the paparazzi. Just doesn't fit with the theme right now. One thing I also wanted to note about the smoker and how much heat it does produce is the fact that everything in the starting biome of this planetoid sort of runs a little hot anyways. Our sweat corns can go all the way up to 40 degrees and down to -5. The mimikas have a comfort range of 10 to 45 and can go all the way up to 80. The Lumbs are comfortable all the way up to 70. So unlike when you're running some traditional plants such as blossoms or mealwood, you don't have to worry too much about the higher heat coming off the smoker, at least initially. So our digs up north have not revealed too much. These biomes here, by the way, are pretty cold, and that's because unlike the lumbs and the sweat corn, the dartles have a comfort range of minus 40 to 20, and the dew drippers, which produce brine ice, can only go up to 5 degrees. The rexes can only go up to 15 in their comfort range. The megafrond can only go up to 15, which brings us to actually one of the newest vents or geysers in the game, and that is the cool chlorine gas vent. Unlike the regular chlorine gas vent, the cool version produces its chlorine at 5C. So I definitely see a nice megafrond and cool chlorine gas vent farm here in the future. Over on the west side, still another one of these super cold biomes, which will come in handy when we start wanting to ranch the dartles and the rexes. Oh, there's a geyser up here too. I suppose eventually I'll be able to sneak in there and see what that is. I'm going to try to expand off more in this direction just to see what we can find. I'm looking for a whole nother section that has more new critters and more new plants that I have not been able to show you in 2 episodes. I just saw our calorie count go up pretty quickly, and that's because we have some completed veggie poppers up here. So we can start storing them in the ration box as well. We're down to 2 tons of algae, but I just found a nice couple of nodes filled with it. So what I think we're going to do is also dig up through here and then over here so I can scoop up all of that delicious algae. That way I feel a little bit better about how much we have in our backstock. Our rock crusher is completed, and so we're going to start on the 800 kilos worth of nickel we'll need to make the Blastshot maker, which is going to require 16 batches. Once again, I wanted to highlight the cool new recipe panels. Not a lot of options with this specific recipe, but still kind of cool to see. We've dug over here and I still have not found the new critters. I'm thinking they might be further south, so down we go. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of salt water there, so what I'm going to do is dig up to this point and then start corner building in so I don't drop that salt water and it makes it even more difficult to dig down here. I think we'll also put in another oxygen diffuser here, which has a pretty long extension cord from our grid, but that'll be okay. Oh, it was a major volcano. Okay, that's not going to be good, because when the big asteroid hits, this thing's going to start erupting. The long and short of it is, the game clears all of the area around it and puts it into active eruption mode. I need some insulated tiles, please. Here we go. We'll get working on those too. Another reason why the auction down here is important, not just because this has been our carbon sink, so all the carbon dioxide is going to be falling down here, but also because we're eventually going to come in contact with some bleach stone that's going to start producing some chlorine. While chlorine naturally sinks to the bottom, if there's no oxygen or other atmosphere in here, the chlorine will sort of spread and make digging that much more difficult. For those wondering on the grand scale how big this planetoid is, you can already see the top, but the bottom only goes down there, so we don't have a lot of room on the planetoid. Alright, so here's the plan. We have finished insulated tiles. Yeah, it's kind of actively erupting or getting ready to erupt, but as long as we don't dig out that tile right there, it won't actually erupt. Well, until the big asteroid hits and causes all of them to start erupting. So before that has a chance to happen, we're going to go in here and put a bunch of insulated tiles around it. Of course, we need some better digging, which we are just now unlocking super hard digging. Oh, and that means Piercer is ready to start ranching. Glenn Sullivan and Fallout Stan are both going into field research. Let's check on our overgrow node. No, it's not even close. It's only got 4 vines growth worth. We just finished our second veggie popper and we're up to 22,000 calories. And notice that the smoker is not running, and it won't for a little while because it has to wait for a lot more of the sweat corn. So while yeah, it is hot, it doesn't run as often because when it does finally run, it runs for a long time, but gives you a massive amount of calories in each recipe. I mean, the tender brisket is 16,000 calories. Even the smoked fish is over 11,000. I really could use another dupe right now because we're starting to fall behind on duplicate labor, but these two are just not printable. Building impaired, and the only thing Camille's good at is rocketry. I think we're actually going to grab the metal power banks. We could use these even if we don't have bionic dupes, because you can put the compact discharger around for an easy source of portable power. And all you do is put the discharger down and throw a battery into it. And I can tell we're behind on labor because We're still waiting for 2 more batches at the rock crusher. A bunch of these dig commands have not happened yet. I suppose one of them is my fault. And we're still also digging down here. Instead of destroying that salt water, I will get in there and dig out this sand so that when we put a tile here, it'll push the salt water over. Oh, I've got a glimpse over here on the left side. You can see a couple of the new insect type of critters, and that is the nits. Here's a little nit egg. You can see the Laura down here. I definitely want to start using it here soon too, because that produces us amber. Amber we can turn into resin, which we can turn into plastic. Gonna be a few episodes before we're there. And since we found some salt, it'd probably be a good idea to make some of this table salt. Let me queue up about 10 of these. Remember, when you have access to table salt, the dupes will put little salt shakers on their mess tables, and you'll get a bonus to their morale for having salted foods. And plus, it looks really adorable sitting there. What I'd like to see is the pinch of pepper nuts being able to be grounded in the rock crusher, and that way you could have little pepper sitting here too. Queuing up some more dig commands to see if I can see anything further out. I mean, we're just about at the edges here, but we're obviously missing a couple of biomes. We have some more visibility over here. You can see the new Jawbos. The Jawbos will eat Pacu, but get this, they produce rust. And remember, you can take rust and throw it into a rust deoxidizer and get iron ore back. So we now have an ability on a planetoid to create ore. Previously, the only way to get more ore was to go to another planetoid or go to a point of interest in space. But this was the meat and potatoes I'm looking for. These are the sea combs. The sea combs will consume polluted dirt, but their leaves can be processed to create phyto oil. Keep that in mind, because we finally have enough refined metal to put in the Blastshot maker. Now, I know the Blastshot maker takes 960 watts, so we're not going to be able to run both the rock crusher and the Blastshot maker off of it. But I at least want to get the recipe up so I can highlight everything we need to make exactly 99 intercosmic blast shots. One shy of the minimum it would take to destroy the asteroid. Stan is really not good at building. They've been building the blast shot maker for about a half a cycle, and now they're going to eat. Come on, buddy, it was almost done. I realize we are also going to need a little bit more nickel ore, because I need at least 1 incubator to be able to take care of the Lumb situation. I do have access to the incubator, but it's 200 kilos, which is another 4 batches of nickel ore to nickel, which incidentally gives us a little bit of sand, so it's not too bad. Especially considering we don't have a lot of access to sand yet. Actually, no, we do. We have plenty of sand, people. Plenty of sand. The blast shot maker is finally complete. And here's our 2 recipes. We have an intercosmic blast shot and the blast shot. When we click on the intercosmic blast shot, you can see I could select between fertilizer and peat. Well, obviously it's going to be peat because, well, it's all over this biome. And our Lumbs are going to be giving it to us. It's going to take a refined metal. That's not great news because right now our refined metal is coming from the rock crusher. And then the third ingredient, which requires biodiesel or petroleum. There's no oil on this planetoid. Wait, I'm wrong again. There is oil on this planetoid. It's just a very, very tiny amount. So either you can go to another planetoid to get the petroleum, possibly at the connected one. In fact, if we check out the destination, we can see it is an oily, sandy swamp. So there is an oil biome down here, which is one way to do it. But the other way is to use biodiesel. Well, if we take the plant pulverizer, which most people probably had not used up to this point, and especially select the new blueprint of the Lumb plant pulverizer, and I stick it over here for reasons, we're going to be able to take all of those seacomb leaves, add some water to it, and then get 100 kilos worth of phyto oil back. Echo, you said we needed biodiesel, not phyto oil. Ah, yes. This is where the next pain in the tuchus is going to be. Because if I then take that phyto oil, add it to some bleach stone, and put it through the emulsifier, we get biodiesel. The emulsifier is one of the new buildings that combines liquids. No longer do you create things like supercoolant in the molecular forge. No, all the high-end liquids come through here. Viscogel, supercoolant, in this case biodiesel. In fact, you can now make salt water by taking water and just adding salt. Not sure how much I'm going to use that, but you can do it. So the bleach stone's not necessarily going to be a problem. And the bleach stone we're going to get from 2 locations. One, throughout this biome here. We'll see if it's going to be enough. But 2, remember our dartles? the dartles produce the bleachstone by eating the dewdrips. Are you starting to see the synergy behind the new Prehistoric Pack DLCs? Everything is sort of intermingled, and I would say more so than we've seen in previous DLCs, especially in combination with the new recipe pack where you can choose a different ingredient. Well, if you don't have access to peat, you could use wood. You don't have access to jawbone fillets, you could use pacu fillets. Even the veggie poppers, yeah, we've only been using sweat corn, can also be created out of pike apples and spindly grub fruits. Okay, I'm starting to pick up what you're throwing down. So we are going to need biodiesel by getting phyto oil. Are there any other issues? Well, one, the emulsifier. The emulsifier requires 200 kilos of refined metal, but also 100 kilos of glass. And while the emulsifier itself is not too bad to get, with only being a tier 2 tech requiring novice and advanced research, the glass forge, on the other hand, requires tier 3 research at the materials study terminal. Now you might be thinking, Echo, can you get 100 kilos of glass from point of interest? Well, maybe, but it's going to take a lot. These lab windows up here are 5 kilos apiece. Each one of these is 5 kilos. There's some more down here. Once again, 5 kilos each. You have some more windows back here, 5 kilos. All said and done, when I count up all the windows, it comes up to be about 85 kilos. So we're going to see... Oh, wait. Oh, there's a diamond window tile. It's not glass. So we'll do some more exploration, but we may have to resort to breaking out the glass forge. That's going to about do it for this episode. And while it may not look like it, we did get a lot accomplished. We now know how to make the intercosmic blast shots. Thanks to our new blast shot maker, we've got the plant pulverizer down. We have found the sea comb that we're going to need to grab and throw into the plant pulverizer. Isn't that just adorable? To get the phyto oil that we're going to turn into biodiesel at the emulsifier. Look, it's a treacherous route, I know. And who can forget the table salt? As always, I'm looking forward to reading your comments and seeing what you thought about this episode or any suggestions on directions that we should head. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.